dubbed Havana syndrome, a mysterious illness supposedly plaguing the U.S. intelligence community for years.
The Canadian victims of the very real MK Ultra project, the lasting damage has left an
The UN Human Rights Council has voted against holding a debate on alleged widespread human rights abuses.
Welcome to TM Radio Broadcasting. My name is Frank Allen. We are live from Boston, Massachusetts. Today's date, Tuesday, October the 14th, 2025. To listen to the broadcast, dial +1 518 801 1318. When we are off air, you can listen on this line to past episodes 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Call into the studio to ask Galina, Maxine, Craig, or David a question at +1 617 987 8603. I will formally introduce everyone momentarily. Tonight, we have 3 organizations coming together here to enlighten the community and the listening audience. We have a roundtable discussion. Representing victims of psychotronic mind control weapons, Galina Cardina from Toronto, Canada. Maxine Holloway, Ottawa, Canada. And David Smith from Winnipeg, Canada. Representing the international resistance movement against neurotechnological torture. Once again, we have Galina Cardina, Toronto, Canada. Representing the International Coalition Against the Electronic Torture and Robotization of Living Beings, or ICATOR, I-C-A-T-O-R. And his name is Craig LaForest from Sydney, Australia. Okay, Galina, would you like to take over from here?
Yes, first of all, I want to say good evening for everybody. We're very glad to be here and talk to Frank Allen. First of all, I would like to say some words about our organization. I live in Toronto, Ontario, and I am a victim of psychotronic weapons. Psychotronic means mind-body control. I have run an organization of victims of psychotronic mind control weapons since 2009. We regularly protest, collect signatures for petitions against misuse of psychotronic weapons, meet Canadian politicians, write numerous letters, including registered letters to the Canadian Parliament, Canadian government and its associates, Canadian newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, and all over the world. A bit more about our political activities. I contacted the Ministry of Health in Ottawa, the United Nations office in Ottawa, went to the Ontario Information and Privacy Commissioner Department, visited Member of Provincial Parliament David Kaplan, met a leader of the Liberal Party in Canada, Michael Ignatieff. Our group submitted a petition against misuse of psychotronic weapons to Member of Parliament Mr. John McKay. On the 23rd of November 2011, the first petition was presented, tabled in the House of Commons in Ottawa. Its number was 411-0188. More than 1,000 signatures for the petition were collected by our organization. An answer of the Canadian government was, the Canadian government takes note of the petitioner's concerns. However, the government has no information on any such activities. I sent the petition with signatures and the answer of the Canadian government to the Human Rights Committee of United Nations by a registered letter on the 28th of March 2012. United Nations received and confirmed it, but didn't answer. My comrades and I collected more than 3,000 signatures for the second petition against misuse of psychotronic weapons. Member of Parliament Mr. John Mackay tabled this petition on the May 3rd, 2018. Its number was 41-02313. I have received the second, almost identical answer from the Canadian government that it took notes of the petitioner's concerns but had no information on any such activities. The third petition against misuse of psychotronic weapons collected more than 1,000 signatures in Canada in 2021. It was successfully certified in the House of Commons in December 2021. Certified means it was checked and double-checked, all signatures were checked, everything was okay. But my Member of Parliament, Julie Dabrusin, changed her mind and refused to present it in the House of Commons in February 2022. On the 10th of March this year, 2025, I made an oral submission to the 32nd session of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in United Nations, Geneva, Switzerland. There was unprecedented big quantity of speakers from Canada on that day, which was, in my opinion, made deliberately and intentionally by the Canadian government in order not to let genuine Canadian targeted individuals talk enough and keep them silent. We were allowed to talk for only 2 minutes instead of promised 5 minutes. That was why our submission was the short version of our petition to the Canadian Parliament on our website, organizationofmindcontrolvictims.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Galina. Who would like to step up and describe their organization or their story? How about Craig? Would you like to take the mic, Craig?
Thanks, Frank. I hope you can hear me. I just had a bit of problem with the sound, but I hope you can hear me okay.
You sound fine.
So I'd just like to give your audience a little bit of background on myself. It builds into the story as to where I am today. I was born in Sydney, Australia in 1953 and lived in Los Angeles between 1983 and 2011. I held a variety of different positions while I was in Los Angeles and returned to Sydney in 2011 to retire. I've taken care of foster respite children and have worked at home with non-profit organisations, have held concerts in my home for the Cancer Council, Mercy Ships, which operate hospital ships on the west coast of Africa, and the Wayside Chapel, which is a homeless organisation here in Sydney. Unfortunately, I've had to stop all of that because of the technology which is being used on me, both V2K and directed energy weapons. I've been a targeted victim from those technologies for at least 35 years and have spoken on panels and radio programs like this one, Frank, around the world. Between 2009 and 2011, when I was planning to return to Australia, I lived with the scientist and film director James Cameron at his home in Malibu, California. People may remember that he directed Terminator and Avatar. I knew Jim's wife prior to her marrying Jim and was there also during the period that they had 3 children. One occasion I traveled to Seattle with Jim and Susie and visited iLabs, the Institute for Learning and Brain Sciences, where I saw a child used to project thoughts onto a screen. The child should have been protected from any form of experimentation. I witnessed the child transmitting thoughts of an animal or a word onto a screen which had been set up in front of us. It was an amazing experience. However, there was no reaction from Jim other than he said, "I know all about this already." When I look back, I believe it was my time with Jim which was the reason for my becoming targeted. An arrogant man and a celebrity, as he referred to himself, who often discuss the brain and the effects of the brain and how it could be subjected to the suffering of people. Through the damage I was receiving as part of V2K technology and directed energy weapons, I was introduced to ex-CIA scientist Dr. Robert Duncan, who developed the technologies for the CIA and DARPA. Robert became a really good mate of mine through his work as a whistleblower until he was murdered in July last year, 2024, by directed energy weapons. Victims of these atrocious technologies are still being experimented on illegally with brain implants, chips, and by brain scanning. Unscrupulous ENT doctors, general practitioners, and dentists are implanting people without their consent while they are in surgery for a basic operation and where a general anesthetic is required. Non-consensual brain implants are extremely difficult to find via MRIs, CAT scans, and X-rays, as they are very small, are not all made of metal, and once lodged in the skull can be grown over by bone calcification. They are very easy to miss when a radiologist is typically looking for a brain tumor. Transmission also happens through the eyes, which I have, as do all TIs, and it's one of the, I consider it a privilege of abuse as part of the perpetrator's technologies. Via my brain implants, I am tortured with radiation transmission burns on my body every night. I receive waves of this during the day and night, and I receive very clear voices and images and computer-generated nightmares. I can be at home, traveling at any latitude and longitude on the Earth. When I travel by plane or on a ship, I am bombarded by these transmissions. I've been blessed to go up to the North Cape several times and down to Antarctica for about 4 times. And I was implanted, I believe, during my time in Los Angeles for the reasons I've already mentioned. I'm a board member of ECOTOUR, the International Coalition Against the Electronic Torture of Living Beings. In addition, I am a member of Targeted Justice in North America. ECOTOUR is a non-profit organization based in Brussels, Belgium, and we've set a goal to fight electronic torture of all citizens. We are so heavily involved in finding specialists and making them aware of the technologies, and we're creating a special clinic where people can be tested for any brain damage. We have found that many people are being scanned for implants. I recently, was told that I have possibly Meniere's disease on the left hand because of the effects of these transmissions on the left-hand side of my brain. I took a couple of vestibular tests. We hope to have the help of physicist Dr. Barry Trower, which will be fantastic. Barry, as many of you may know, is ex-MI5 and a microwave radiation expert and physicist. He's talked so much about how innocent victims around the world are being used as guinea pigs. Several of Barry's incredible presentations are up on our website for everybody to see. Barry has taken his time to produce published papers in which he has stated that in only 3 generations' time, which is 50 to 60 years away, 1 out of every 8 children will be born with some form of cancer, autism, or other handicap. Children are being tortured today with V2K transmission voices and microwave from satellites and directly from the ionosphere. The criminals who use these technologies on us are a cancer to the world. We're just in an evil world at the moment. Our precious privilege of life has been taken from us. I can only imagine what will happen to the children and grandchildren of the criminals who are obsessed with torturing us. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much, Greg. I think we would like to hear from Maxine. Can you go ahead, Maxine? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Maxine, please unmute yourself.
Oh, there. I finally got it.
Go ahead.
Hello. I am Maxine, and I have been a bit of background for this. Back in 2010, I guess I was using the internet, and for some reason I might have encountered some people on the internet that wasn't on the up and up, but I wasn't able to tell who they are. You just interact with people on the internet, and eventually I find myself being targeted for this psychotronic harassment that they did, starting with against gang stalking, and then it went into mind control. I don't belong to an organization per se, except that I consult with Galena. I'm part of that group, and I don't think I'm very active there, but I do get active with a group on Facebook called Targeted Individuals. That's where I learned a lot of information about what the tortures are and why it happened and how it happened, and use of psychotronic type of weapon against people. And they do it in such a way that they can't be identified. And so it just looks like you're doing you're being harassed phantomly. And as a result, nobody seemed to, when you relate the stories that you experience, nobody seemed to believe anything that you have to say. So when you talk about radiation, which is one of the things that I experienced, and microwave heating up, it'll heat up my house all of a sudden. I don't experience V2K, but I know about V2K because it was explained to me that it's a kind of voice to skull where they transmit voices in your head, and it plays 24/7 in your head. That kind of drive you crazy, which is probably what they actually want for everybody, to drive everybody crazy and impoverished, because everybody has been marginalized in this, experiencing this kind of evil torture, is all I can call it. And so the weapons, some more weapons that they use is like gassing. They also violate your privacy by entering your home. And they come in and they do various things in your home, one of which is to create gassing effect in your house, where they'll work on your furnace, they'll cause gas leaks, which is what they did to me. Then they started using other gases that cause brain burn and skin burn and eye burn, and it just goes on like that. And sometimes some of the gases has more serious effect. They kind of sort of block your brain from working. You get brain blocks and memory loss kind of thing. And then there's those that are that cause allergy, and they'll put it all over your house, including in your bed. So when you go into your retire for the night, you're up suffering from allergies from inhaling all these different things they put in your bed as a way of torturing you. My recent experience this week has been with tear gas. Like, I wake up every morning with my eyes burning, the room smell of gas of some kind. I get the furnace people to come and check, and they're saying everything is fine, but I know it's not. I know it is from those who clandestinely enter my house and create this kind of a torture and upset for me. And those are some of the ways they work on torturing people, which is not very. It's not very nice. It's not very welcome by anyone, and no one should encounter such kind of a torture. but it is happening, and it seemed to be worldwide because in my interactions with people online, they're from people from all walks of life, from various countries, and they all say the same thing. So there has to be some truth to all of this, because people not knowing each other, living in different parts of the world, can't make up the same story all at once and experiencing the same thing. It just doesn't make sense. So obviously there is an organization that is spreading this kind of torture to people on the clandestine, and our authorities are not doing anything to help, because when you report anything like this to them and talk about home invasion, they say we see no sign of break and entry, so therefore they're not doing anything, and they start to think that you're crazy and you should be seen by a psychiatrist, who again further victimize you by telling you that you're schizophrenic or that you have some kind of mental problem that needs to be fixed. And so they want to put you on various mind-altering drugs to, I guess, control all of this, when all of that is external to you, but they want to fix your brain. And that, to me, is just not acceptable. And those are the ways they come at me and other victims of the psychotronic mind control and weapon torturing. And I think we need to educate the community about it and help to bring this to an end in whatever way we can. And just pass it on to someone else.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we have David Smith come up, I would like to say a few words. You mentioned education. Now, what we have to do is educate the medical sector. We have to educate law enforcement. These people have protocols that they follow, and they don't deviate from them. If the word targeted individual comes up, you are dispatched straight away to a facility where they can deal with you and make money off you at the same time. Okay, David, go ahead. Okay, David, you need to unmute, sir.
First of all, I'd like to make a correction, Frank. I don't live in Winnipeg. I live on Gabriel Island, British Columbia, which is near Nanaimo. So it's an island of about 5,000 full-time residents, and it's about a 20-minute ferry ride from Nanaimo. However, my targeting started on Salt Spring Island in 2002. Now, I believe what happened was that after the false flag of 2001 and all these draconian measures they passed in the States, they had all this black ops money to start testing people on a large scale. So I think that was behind mine. Unfortunately, my neighbors were the one who were involved in it. I found out later they belonged to the Satanic Church of Victoria. Now, one of the psychiatrists who examined me, so to speak, and started screaming at me that I was crazy and this and that. I found out that he's the intermediate between the Army, which sends out these contracts, and the Satanic Church of Victoria, which get these contracts to torture and murder people after a period of time. Now, I was under a 10-year contract to begin with. I went to see everyone about this without any result. Now, as this RCMP officer told me when I first moved to Gabriola, and I went to him and told him my story, and this was in 2004, about 2 years after the targeting started. He said to me that I believe everything that you're telling me. The problem is you have to go a lot higher than me to get this stopped. There's not much I could do about it. And so I found out through basically hitting my head against the wall, going to MLAs, MPs, lawyers, the mayor of Nanaimo, all these different people sat and listened and could care less about what was happening. Now, the problem is when you get labeled as a paranoid schizophrenic, which happened to me, which was quite amusing to me, actually, because I don't have any fear of death or any of these people. And through the years, I've been trying to do whatever I can to expose them. One of the things I've been doing lately is trying to get on talk shows or the internet, the different podcasts that they have to inform people what's happening. So far, I haven't been real successful. However, I am running up against my perps because they have the ability that whatever has a computer chip into it, they could screw around with. That includes my electric heat. It includes the pressure on my water. It includes the electric oven. So everything that I do is a real challenge. And this goes on 24/7. You know, I was implanted by the old technology after a short time after this started. So I would say by 2003, I was already implanted. So recently I've had an x-ray, and the only thing they did was send me send my doctor a synopsis of what they found, which was actually nothing. However, the implants are so small that I know it's very difficult to see. So I requested to get the x-rays themselves, and I will eventually get them $50 later, but I will get a disc that will show the x-rays, and hopefully I could find something on it which proves beyond a doubt what is happening. And I think that's the way to go, is to basically be able to prove what is happening in some way and have a court case against them. You know, now I know the names of all the people involved in my trip, and I'm very happy to share it with the world, because I know they're very scared of being exposed in this, because they've been doing it for a long time, and according to them, they were told that there would be no repercussions from these actions. So I think that it's very important that we develop some repercussions as a warning shot against anyone who wants to join forces with these evil people in perpetuating these crimes against humanity. Now, the scene is that what I'm worried about most is the mind control techniques that they have. You know, as far as I go, I have a lot of blocks up, so they really can't control me at all. But I know how easy it is to control people when it's so subtle, the technology that they have, which is what worries me the most, how easy it is to influence people, especially with the COVID shots, which put nanotechnology in all the people that took it, and they're all susceptible to this technology. And I don't know, I think the most important thing is to expose it any way we can through talk shows, through podcasts, but most especially to be able to bring a lawsuit against people who are involved in this. I know there's been a couple already that were successful. One was by this fellow, and the judge told the perpetrator to stay out of the head of this guy. You know, well, that wasn't much, was it? But it's a start. You know, if we could show that this is happening beyond a doubt, then I think that governments will be forced to do something about it. That's about all I have to say.
That was very good, David. Very good. Now, I have several questions that I would like to ask myself. And the first one goes to Craig. And Craig, you have been a driving force behind the TI movement. Can you give our listening audience a feeling as to how far we have come since 2005 when Derek Robertson first picked up a mic?
Thanks for that comment, Frank. Yeah, we're working non-stop between Derek, who is also our vice president at ICADA. We've been just working so hard to try and understand the reason behind why people would go to such lengths and try to destroy us. And through our research, for example, we found that the victims are usually people who have a great focus on a great life and are associated with a higher mental understanding. We know that approximately 60% of the targets are women and 40% men. They have targeted groups, the LGBTQI+. I know people who are gay men who have been targeted, and I know trans ladies who are targeted as well through this. So we provided these criminals the opportunity to research their experiments on a variety of different people, single people, even married people, and now children, as I mentioned earlier on. As I mentioned, you know, I was a good friend of Robert Duncan, Dr. Robert Duncan, until he was murdered last year. And what we're finding is, and Robert stepped away from further development of the technology because the victims became us, each of us, Frank, Galena, David, Maxine, and myself, United States citizens, Australian citizens. We have members around the world, and we're seeing this in so many countries where governments are using this technology on people. And Robert wanted to do the right thing. He stated that this is a global phenomenon. I'm just reading an excerpt from his book. This is a global phenomenon. There is nowhere on Earth you can escape. The full spectrum of electromagnetic energy and physics are combined in this. From the ground, wavelengths travel through the ionosphere, bounce off it, and the Earth ground. We are bathed in a natural magnetic field of Earth. With those two things, you have a nuclear magnetic resonance machine. Surveillance is available when integrating with satellites. We're electrical beings. We have 100 billion neurons in our brain. So either through chipping, implanting, or scanning the brain, it's so easy to project a transmission off a satellite or off the ionosphere.
Very good.
Thanks, Frank.
Very thorough. Very good. Galina, I noticed that you have had a recent petition released. Could you tell our listening audience something about that?
Sorry, Frank, please cut out this moment. Repeat, please, because I missed a lot.
That's quite all right. That happens. I noticed that you have had a recent petition released. Could you tell our listening audience about
that? Unfortunately, our last petition was certified in 2021 in House of Commons in Ottawa, but it wasn't tabled because my Member of Parliament, Julie Dabrusin, she refused to table this petition. However, I still have plans to find a Member of Parliament in Toronto or maybe in Ontario in order to present the third petition. We will start collecting signatures maybe next summer and present this petition in House of Commons. I hope to do it as soon as possible.
Very good.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to have...
I apologize. Please cut out this moment.
Okay.
You know, I have prepared part of my speech about my own personal experience. You will be able to maybe to broadcast it full or maybe some parts of it, but I would like to present my personal experience, if it is possible.
You can present whatever you want to. It's our station. So go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was born in Russia in 1959. I graduated from a university and worked as a leading software and database developer in many companies in Russia. I and my son, we immigrated from Russia to Canada in February 2004. I arrived at Canada in good health. From the end of December 2005, I have been involved in a cruel experiment with psyche. In Canada, I became a victim of psychotronic weapons and an officially disabled person because of it. It is not a clinical trial. I didn't sign any consent forms, and I want to be excluded from this experimentation. I have experienced the following symptoms of Havana syndrome and mind control effects since the end of December 2005. I may say that I developed all the symptoms during several hours. Disruption of ability to concentrate and think on my own, constant induced thoughts, constant induced feelings, emotions, sensations, including hunger, loss of memory and knowledge, receiving visual images and microwave hearing, including torture with intense loud voices and noise. Microwave hearing means sounds and voices in heads of people induced by radio frequencies. Perpetrators sent feeling of sharp pain with their every word in 2006-2008 years. Induced actions and memory deletion of them later. I experienced constant pressure from above on crown of my head, forehead and temples, which makes it impossible to concentrate and think on my own. I am manipulated in this state like a computer device, compelled to say or do what I do not want to say or to do. I experience forced speech, involuntary body movements, induced actions, change of facial expressions, tone and pitch of my voice, artificial laughter and tears, and so on. Deciphering of memories and mind reading. Torture with insomnia, artificial pain in any part of my body, cramps in muscles, especially at night time. The perpetrators, they like to torture me at night time. Blurred vision, sensitivity to light, sensitivity to noise, loss of balance and coordination of movements, extreme dizziness, fatigue, disorientation, irritability, and nervousness. Perpetrators can manipulate any organ of my body and force me to urinate, defecate, or vomit. I had a lot of skin damages because of the electromagnetic effects upon me. Perpetrators burned skin on my face, and I had horrible ulcers all over my body for at least 2 years, and 5 doctors in Toronto were unable to make any diagnosis. One dermatologist just said to me that these ulcers were out of area of her expertise. Perpetrators get all my sensations. They see what I see, smell what I smell, hear what I hear. I'm a walking video camera for them. Level of constant mind control effects upon me is extreme. A bit more about my life in Canada. We rented an apartment at 73 Mossbrook Crescent, Scarborough, Ontario from January 2005 till October 2006. I am sure that another tenant and friend of our landlord's, Lee Chan, carried out these fascist experiments with psyche. This Dr. Mengele arrived at 73 Mossbrook Crescent in March 2005 and started assaults upon me. The landlord's son, Charles Lee, said that Lee Chan had worked for Chinese government for 10 years. I began to feel unwell and moved my back at night time in August 2005. I experienced loss of memory, especially when I took exams or job interviews. At the end of sentences in tasks, I couldn't remember what I had read at the beginning of these sentences. I think that I was implanted with nanomaterials during one-day examination with full anesthesia in a polyclinic at 4646 Dufferin Street in Toronto at the end of December 2005. Several people who spoke Russian joined Lee Chan at 73 Mossbrook Crescent in January 2006. I heard their activity and voices and saw their faces in the house from January 2006 to March 2006. Since January 2006, I saw Lee Chan in several situations that directly pointed to his involvement in the events that I am describing. Furthermore, activities and speech that I heard on the main floor of that house matched 100% what I received through microwave hearing. On the 13th of January 2006, I got trauma of the forehead and left temple. I felt a sharp pain on the left side of my forehead. My speech was deteriorated after that. I saw bloody letters in books and didn't understand the meaning of well-known Russian and English words when I was trying to read. I heard laughter and Russian speech on the main floor of the house after this trauma. She is looking at the book. She is trying to find out whether she can read or not. At the beginning of 2006, a brain exam detected a tiny round 5 millimeters low T1W and high T2W signal intensity in my pineal gland. I would like to remove this body from my brain. In 2006, there was one moment when perpetrators talked to me as usual by means of microwave hearing. But something happened to their equipment, and this talk began to sound loudly in the room. They pronounced several phrases this way, by means of microwave hearing and by means of acoustic waves simultaneously. Perpetrators have asked me several times, of course by means of microwave hearing, since January 2006, whether I wanted to work for RCMP as a guinea pig in these experiments for 25,000 Canadian dollars per year. I refused every time. I reported about this crime, including names of suspects, to Toronto police for the first time at the beginning of January 2006. I asked the police to come to 73 Mossbrook Crescent and talk to landlords and perpetrators in the house, but police directed me to medical doctors and refused to come to this house and start an investigation. And it proves that it was perfectly possible for the police and RCMP to start the investigation and find perps in 2006, but they did nothing. Actually, all my reports to police and RCMP have been dismissed for the last 20 years. It proves that the Canadian government and its institutions like police and RCMP sanction and cover these crimes. That's why they are completely responsible for them. Somebody sprays brown liquid in my apartment when I am out. I see brown and dark yellow drops on my walls, furniture, and curtains. In 2009, I managed to find an American toxicologist, Dr. Steninger, who provided me with her expert opinion that I am a victim of specific electromagnetic and radio frequency effects which react with advanced nanomaterials in my system. These nanomaterials are used as RFID chips to send signals to my body. In 2009, I managed to find several American psychologists and psychotherapists who prepared reports for me that I am a sane person without any sign of psychiatric disease who developed post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of directed energy psychotronic attacks. I managed to find an American private investigator who confirmed these conclusions that I am a victim of mind control attacks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question for all four of you. And the question is, what do you think your biggest challenge will be in focusing your group on your current goals? I'd like to start with Craig.
The biggest challenge on my private goals versus the organization I belong to, Frank? Is that your question? I couldn't hear it all.
It would be the organization.
Yeah, Ecotour.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mentioned that we are working with specialists in Europe presently. We're trying to set up a laboratory and a clinic for people who are victims of this technology. It's amazing the number of people who are contacting us who understand now that these technologies have been around since World War II, when the Nazi scientists were basically distributed between three countries, Britain, the US, and Russia. And they came over and were given new identities, homes, salaries, as long as they told the US government everything they knew about this mind control. I think it was part of Project Paperclip. Instead of going to the Nuremberg trials and being hanged, as most of the Nazi scientists, most of the Nazi SS were. So, to Galina's point, with Mengele experimenting with people, we're finding that this disgusting technology has continued since 1945, and we're just as frustrating as it is for all of us, because and I can talk about what's happening here in Australia as part of people hearing voices and really clever people, very clever people, general practitioners and psychologists and psychiatrists are passing them off as schizophrenic or delusional. It's an easy excuse, and when you consider that the psychiatrists, the rate of suicide from psychiatrists, I believe, is 4 to 5 times larger than the general population. I rarely speak to, and we tell people who are victims who contact us at Ecotour and Targeted Justice, I rarely respond to the perpetrators in my head. When I'm engaged to speak in conferences or speak to victims around the world, I stress that victims adopt, and it's very difficult to do this, what's called the grey rock method. You never respond to the narcissist who is speaking in your head. I dismiss these criminals as cowards, actors, and traitors, C-A-T-S, and traitors to their country. Cowards, C-A, actors, T, traitors to their country and to themselves. And one day the cat will run out of its 9 lives. As I already mentioned, I and most people find this also. The transmission happens through the eyes. They can see what I can see. I can be watching Jeopardy, for example, and be fed the answers to football questions. I don't follow football. I don't watch it. I have no idea about the results or the players. And I'm given the answers to these questions. The wonderful thing is, if any in your audience have a good group of friends, I've lost a lot of friends through not articulating exactly what's happening around the world. I've done that now because I'm a member of Targeted Justice and ICADA. We share information. We may lose friends, but I'm prepared to do that. If people don't do the research on what's happened, I'm quite prepared to lose friends. I do have an incredible group of friends, as I know a lot of victims have, who have done the research, who are really involved with trying to stop this technology. And I'm very public about what I say about these technologies. And they share the information with other people. Many victims, unfortunately, don't have anyone they can talk to. When we consider what a privileged life is, we have perpetrators, people who have no soul, who are not only the usual dictators around the world in different countries, but the ones behind technology and experiments. I was never a religious man. I'm a very spiritual man. I believe in a higher power. And my creator will one day come down on the perpetrators of this war crime. Life is a test. It's a privilege for so many of us. Idiots supporting these technologies while 21,000 children die unnecessarily every single day around the world. These criminals will see the wrath of my creator. Right.
That's a very deep comment, and I'm sure many, many feel the same way. And that was fantastic. And the next one is once again for Maxine this time. Maxine, what do you think your biggest challenge will be in focusing your group on your current goals?
Maxine, unmute yourself, please.
Maxine, you must unmute.
Mute. Okay, there. The biggest challenge is sort of getting recognition and help for all the victims of this evil crime that is happening, that is flourishing and under everybody's nose, but not being recognized. There's so many desperate people and people who have been left marginalized and with nothing. They've lost jobs and good paying jobs too, and their livelihood of all whatever kinds, and they're basically at the mercy of the world, and become beggars. And we need to, our challenge for our group is to sort of see how we can help victims like that, and to find what they call it, create a space, like come together, everybody pull together whatever we have and pull together, that we can create space, that we can sort of house people and provide meals for people. So that's some of our goals. It's a bit lofty, but that's one of the things we're trying to do to help. And plus, bringing things to the forefront in front of our politicians so they can do something to help. Because people shouldn't be left desperate like this and not have some recourse to this torture that is happening.
Thank you very much. Another very deep comment. Now, I would like to ask the same question once again. What do you think your biggest challenge will be in focusing your group on your current goals? Galina.
I think that we have to collect more evidences, more proofs, and despite the fact that I filed a lot of court cases with the Superior Court of Justice in Toronto, and all my court cases were dismissed. Despite of this fact, we should proceed, we should collect more evidences, more proofs, and file new lawsuits against Canadian government and its institutions, like police and RCMP. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Now, I would just like to say, in terms of V2K and governments around the world, I believe they are using targets, one way or another, or government agents through V2K and spying. What better spy could you have than an individual, either in the armed forces or a spy, actually, a real spy, that has V2K and can be instructed from point A somewhere in the US, in Europe, in China, to go to a certain area and just look. I had to get that in there because it came out and I wanted to get it before I forgot it. Okay, I'm going to ask this question again. What do you think your biggest challenge will be in focusing your group on your current goals? And this would be going to David.
Frank, is it a question for Craig LaForest?
No, the question is actually for David.
For David, sorry. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, I think at this point in time, I believe David is probably away from his mic. And what I would like to do at this particular point in time is, oops, I gotta fix something here. Okay, Craig, I would like to ask you some questions, if you don't mind.
Certainly, Frank.
Okay, Craig. How do you believe the perpetrators choose the people they use for the torture program? How are they chosen?
Yeah, I highlighted a little while ago, Frank, that our belief through our research is that they focus on single people, ladies.
Oh.
60% are ladies, 40% are men if you belong to a certain group, as they did with the LSD program all those years ago as part of MK Ultra, where some of the audience members may not remember or know about it, where heterosexual men would go to a bar on a Friday night after a long week of work and were picked up by a prostitute, were taken home to the prostitute's home, and the prostitute would put the LSD into a drink, and simply the CIA would have a camera on in another room adjoining the prostitute's room with the man that was in there, just to see the effects of LSD on people, simply for that reason. The evil in people is just, it's amazing. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can be so evil. It's, targeting is the slow murder of a human being's life. Recommending drugs to a patient has become the answer of true communication between a doctor and a patient. I was confronted that when I spoke to my doctor, and I said, I'm hearing very clear voices. I'm not delusional. I'm not schizophrenic, and was written off as being delusional. Very easy. But you've got to look at the history in the United States. You just need to tap into Google unethical experimentation on US citizens. And there's a plethora of information there about what the CIA, what DARPA did, what the Department of Justice did. To think it has taken so long for the very people who protect America, for the Vets Administration, to understand exactly how and why your vets were being medicated for anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I believe it was a Lieutenant Colonel or a Colonel Bart Billings who stated that 98% of the depressed, anxious, and post-traumatic syndrome vets are medicated by psychiatrists. And again, the psychiatrists have a 4 to 5 percentage level higher than the general population. And 98% of the depressed, anxious, and PTS vets were medicated with psychotronic drugs, including Zoloft, Seroquel, Paxil, Prozac, Xanax. And these vets have reacted to these drugs with great conflict. We see that with a lot of homeless vets, not because of going into war. 85% of the vets hooked to these drugs never saw combat, but because the psychiatrists have kept adding to their medication or taken them off one medication to put them on another. And this is what's happening, as I mentioned, to V2K victims. We see general practitioners, specialists, and dentists involved as the perpetrators, and the circle goes round and round and continues. Again, doctors suggest we take some form of medication. We are not delusional. We are healthy people, and people who are fighting a wrong caused by others, Frank. The main question, and Robert talked about this in his book, and to me when he came down to Australia 2 years ago in January, and he did an incredible presentation. And if people haven't seen it, Robert talk about this. It's January of 2023. It's on my YouTube channel. Just type in Craig LaForest. There's a picture of my face, and it's a 1-hour presentation that Robert talks about how he developed this technology for the CIA. And Robert said, why continue, once you've got this technology, why do you continue hurting people? Once each country has world domination, then what? And Robert stated that the perpetrators of the crime don't believe humans with technological capability can stop their inherent sinfulness. And so they're using a system where there is a global hive mind, if you will, a peer system with no secrecy, no judgment, and they work from that state. Of course, Robert disagreed with the methodology and was a whistleblower for 23 years. He agreed that you can't torture innocent people in order to get this domination and to get this data. He called the program Satan, S-A-T-A-N, the silent assassination to adapt to their own networks. This application has phenomenal applications, but our privilege of life has been taken away because we're the experimental guinea pigs, Frank.
Very good. Very thorough answer. Now, this is going to go into medical. Many people tell their doctors that they are hearing very clear voices. What have you found the response to be typically from those doctors in Australia?
Yeah, it continues, Frank. We're hearing so many more people are hearing voices. It's become rampant in Australia. And once again, they go in to have that conversation. I was passed off by 3 general practitioners until I found a neurologist. I was traveling on a ship once, and I'm very outspoken about this technology. If somebody says, okay, what are you doing now that you're retired? You know, you're just traveling the world. And I said, yes, I'm engaged to speak about these certain technologies, and they're very interested. And I met a neurologist from Queensland, a neurosurgeon rather, and I said, this is what's going on in the world. And he was fascinated. And his wife actually said, we've heard about this technology. And he said, we often see these LFOs, like foreign objects, in the brains of people, but we don't go into that area of the brain. Of course, we're typically looking for tumors. We won't go to those areas because the brain is so precious. So to the audience members who may have just tuned in for the first time, just be cautious before making the decision to go and see your doctor and talk about this. Become a member of one of these organizations. We can only stop these technologies being used on us when it comes to the court system, and it's a very slow process. We've been trying to stop it for so long now. I've been, as I said, 35 years plus, and go through this experience every single day. So we all just have to maintain the courage and the strength to, I say that all the time to people, just stay strong. One day this will pass, maybe not in our lifetime, but it has to stop, because we cannot have every country using this technology on their own citizens or other citizens. The world's just going to fall apart.
Very good. Why have you studied this process?
Frank, this to me is like living in World War III. And I don't believe World War II ended. As I mentioned, the scientists came over to the United States. Some went to Britain and some went to Russia. And I just feel for the troops, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of troops that fought for freedom during not only World War I, but World War II, the Vietnam War, the Korean War. They lost so many lives, so many people who were really excited about their lives, but were sent off to war because, again, we don't have the capability of sitting down with someone and having a conversation anymore. We're taken over by mobile phones and TV and programs, and what a blessing this is to sit down and have a conversation with people, even though we can't see each other. But how wonderful it is to sit down and talk, and in another place to be able to laugh and really understand the human being. So I had to research these technologies because of the millions of us around the world who are already non-consensually implanted in our brains and or scanned. Beginning in, I believe it was 1909 and continuing for 70, in your own country, in 1909 and continuing for 70 years, California led the country in the number of sterilization procedures performed on men and women, often without their full knowledge and consent. There's a wonderful video of President Clinton who investigated people who went into hospital for basic surgery under anesthetic and came out with burns on their bodies. And if you just tap into YouTube, President Clinton and radiation, and after an 18-month investigation, they found that the hospital, the doctors were testing people, experimenting with people with radiation. And that happened during the lead up to World War II. There's a researcher, Alex Stern. He was the author of the new book, and I've got it here, Eugenic Nation, Faults and Frontiers of Better Breeding in America. And he said in the early 20th century across the country, medical superintendents, legislators, and social reformers affiliated with an emerging eugenics movement joined forces to put sterilization laws on the books. Such legislation was motivated by crude theories of human heredity. Thank you very much. That posted the wholesale inheritance of traits associated with a panoply of feared conditions such as criminality, feeble-mindedness, and sexual deviance. Many sterilization advocates viewed reproductive surgery as a necessary public health intervention that would protect society from deleterious genes and the social and economic costs of managing degenerate stock, not dissimilar to what the Nazis did. While California's eugenics programs were driven in part by anti-Asian and anti-Mexican prejudice, southern states also employed sterilization as a means of controlling African American populations.
That's very good. I'm going to try something a little bit different just for a second. Does anybody have any questions for Craig on his last question? Okay, Craig, we'll move on then. What is your current knowledge on how these implants are inserted into someone's head?
Frank, there are obvious ways. I, every day, receive incredibly strong pressure points behind my nose, my brow, the top of my crown. I'm burnt from my feet all the way up to the top of my crown. And I can literally put a couple of fingers to the side of my head and feel the pulse of the voices as they're speaking. And research has shown that the smallest implants can be literally injected into areas of the brain. A similar method is now used with patients who have cancer. Their areas of cancer cells can be injected, heated up, and this kills the cancer. It's very similar to what I experienced, and I think Galina was alluding to it earlier on, or said it directly. I'm heated up at nighttime and during the day, and I get burns on my body. I have one at the moment that I was hit last night, and it's on my right-hand side, and it's bleeding from my body being heated up so badly. So for us, the victims of the V2K torture, our brains have in some way been injected with these implants. And when we're literally heated up to these pressure points I mentioned, it is torture, precious torture to the perpetrators who benefit from the initial experiments and continue to be benefited. This technology could be used in the most wonderful way for a child to be chipped in their hand. It's similar to what we do with pets, so that if one is lost or kidnapped, there is an easy way to find them. They're doing that now in Sweden. Also, people who suffer from Parkinson's have their suffering end by small cotton-like wires inserted into their brain, placed in specific areas, so that when they lose their voice and mobility in their hands, and they still have the ability to communicate with their thoughts. There is a program I saw a few years ago where this patient can literally have a thought and project it onto a screen just by thinking something, and can tap out an email and then hit the send button to distribute that email. That's fantastic. The cochlear implant, a gentleman by the name of Hugh Emanuel, he's written that the implant has two pieces which go up through the nose and the mouth into the sinuses and other areas in the cochlea. There's a patent for this. There's a patent out there for this. The technology uses the implants with artificial telepathy, namely the ability to communicate with others with no obvious signs of communication. I can literally delineate between my own God-given thoughts and those which are created by an external person, generated through some form of microphone or computer-generated AI. One of the patents also confirms, it's out there, that RFID tags, which Galina mentioned, can be injected at the back of the throat, and wires are put directly into the medulla oblongata, which is located in the hindbrain anterior to the cerebellum. The medulla is that cone-shaped neuronal mass responsible for multiple involuntary functions ranging from vomiting to sneezing. They can make me bring up bile in the middle of the night or during the day. This area contains the cardiac, respiratory, and vasomotor centers, and therefore deals with the autonomic functions of breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. I'm affected by these every single day and have to take medication for it, which I don't want to do. But when you go and have a blood test and you're heated up, this shows in the blood results. So again, the doctor just says, oh, you need to take this. You've got an increase in this. You've got an increase in this. And I don't need to. I'm a healthy man, and the only part of me which is unhealthy are these transmissions which are coming into my body.
Very good, Craig. Now, You have talked about World War III today and have talked about it before on other programs. And it's because of greed, of knowledge, ego, and wealth. Would you elaborate?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Frank. As Robert Duncan said also, it's, people are inherently sinful when they get involved in these type of technology. We're now a very technologically advanced world. In only the last 125 years, we've learned how to build airplanes, televisions, and put satellites into space. The fun days of me being raised in the 50s when Dad bought a black and white TV with an extension cord with a remote control, and you would flip through we had 3 channels in Sydney at that time. It was fantastic. It was so exciting. We relied on what came out of World War II from the Nazis to develop rockets which can now go to the moon and beyond. We relied on others with greed of knowledge, and that knowledge has been served against us. Families are now broken because of V2K technology and directed energy weapons. In my family, I have one member who supports me. So again, so many victims are trying to tell their family members about what's going on, and I suggest that you become a member of one of our organizations, targetedjustice.com in North America. There are so many people on there who will be there for you. They have dial-in sessions where you can talk to people or just dial in to listen. It's so fantastic. So through these technologies, many of the victims have just been dismissed by family members and friends. But one day it will turn. I believe in the wrath of the Creator, and I believe in karma, Frank.
Once again, Craig, fantastic. Communication has changed dramatically over the years, Craig, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's enormous, Frank. I mentioned what's happened with us targeting, being the slow murder of a human being's life, and recommending drugs to a patient has become the answer of the true communication between a doctor and a patient. And again, what your vets went through is outrageous to consider what they've gone through as guinea pigs also, and all they're trying to do is protect your country. But as we see now with what's happening in the Middle East, we see what's happening in the Ukraine, and these young people are going over to help your country, and they're still being used in the most disgusting ways, I believe.
Okay, I have one final question. Do you have any final comments, Greg?
Thank you, Frank and Galena, for the opportunity to talk today and to be part of this group of victims. We have to continue sharing the information. That's all and I know you're focused on this, Frank, when I asked you earlier on, how are you doing day to day, and what you just said exactly the same thing. We just have to stay strong and keep going. And if you get a relationship with the Spirit or a God, it's just so easy to recognize that this is a journey. This is a journey which has been interrupted for so many of us. We had so many things offered to us post-World War II. Exciting time to be born, but it's been taken from us. So my final words, we must stop any organization using these weapons now and in the future. It's a precious privilege to be here on Earth, and future generations, as I mentioned, will suffer deliberately and disastrously if we are not told by a whistleblower the way that victims have been put into this torture program, and how the scanning continues to be operated, and who is using these technologies on us. These perpetrators, these criminals have children. They have grandchildren and great-grandchildren who are going to suffer in the future. So that's my final word. Step up and stop this. Stop the world from going through this. You don't need to be, a bigger than country than another country. We've seen what happens when countries try to step over somebody and become the dominant force around the world. We need to communicate better, and we need to communicate more but not through this type of technology. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Craig. Galina, I would like to hear from you to see if you have any comments that you would like to add.
Frank, I have not comments, small comments, but I have prepared the third part of my speech about guilt of Canadian government and its institutions like police and RCMP in what is going on with us involuntary human subjects in this thesis experiment. It will take like maybe 15-20 minutes to read this part, but you will be able to broadcast it fully, completely, or maybe in parts. So if you give me a permission, I will start this third part of my speech. What do you think?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. So, okay, just a moment. God, let me find. We do not know what companies carried out these mind control experiments upon us, governmental or private or both. However, we know for sure that the Canadian government sanctions this experimentation and covers criminals who commit the crimes. I want to talk about events that prove that the Canadian government indeed sanctions and covers the crimes upon civilian population by means of psychotronic weapons. Canadian doctors are paid by government. I think that I was implanted with nanomaterials during a gastrological procedure with full anesthesia in a polyclinic at 4646 Dufferin Street in Toronto at the end of December 2005. We call this polyclinic Jewish since most of doctors and patients there were of Jewish origin. Dr. Serapian, who was my family doctor until January 2006, referred me to this gastrological procedure. I am sure that Dr. Serapian was aware of these experiments with psyche upon me. I claim that Dr. Serapian fraudulently obtained my permission to disclose my medical data to other doctors in 2005. She didn't explain to me the purpose of this disclosure. I signed this paper because I thought that if anything had happened to me and Sarah simultaneously, Sarah's children, Naomi and Liu, family doctors in the same polyclinic at 4646 Dufferin Street, would have helped me. I have never ever given a permission to disclose my medical data for the experiments with psyche. Daughter of Sarah Piam, Dr. Naomi Piam, reviewed my medical history and chart. Dr. Sarah Piam said that she had found 2 references for me made by Naomi Piam in my medical file and showed them to me at the end of 2005 year. The references were regarding problems with my throat and bones. Sarah Piam asked whether I had contacted Naomi Piam before, and I answered that I had never ever booked appointments with Naomi and never seen her for any medical reasons. Dr. Sarah Piam told me to schedule appointments with 2 doctors in her polyclinic because of these references. She said to me to cancel these appointments later, but she didn't say that these references were made for somebody else and put in my file by mistake. These references were made for me. They had name Galina Kurzina, and once again, they were made by Naomi Piam without any appointments, without seeing me and talking to me. But the main thing was that at the beginning of 2006, Jews started openly following and watching me in this polyclinic. When I saw Sarah Piam in January 2006, it was clear for me that she disclosed my data to some people whom she knew, and she discussed it with them and knew the purpose of this experiment. She said to me at the beginning of an appointment in January 2006, "Do not think of any silly things." It wasn't an answer to my question. She just advised me not to think about stupid things. I reported about this crime, including names of suspects, to Toronto police for the first time in January 2006. I asked them to come to my house at 73, sorry, not my house, but house where I rented an apartment at 73 Mossbrook Crescent, Scarborough, and talked to landlords and perpetrators who lived and visited this house, but the police refused to do it and directed me to medical doctors. In autumn 2006, I opened a box for letters at 73 Mossbrook Crescent and found a letter for Li Chen, this Chinese guy, from the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education in University of Toronto, U of T. It was clear that Li Chen was legalized in Canada in 2006, studied or worked at the University of Toronto, and had some contacts with this Ontario Institute for Studies and Education. That is why I am absolutely sure that U of T is somehow involved in these cruel fascist experiments with my psyche. On the 18th of September 2006, I walked on foot in the evening and lost my watch. I said to perpetrators about it next day, the 19th of September in the morning. When I was returning from Seneca College on the 19th of September about 4 p.m., I found the same watch, but absolutely new, in front of the house at 73 Mossbrook Crescent, where I live at that moment. It was really brand new. Its inside surface wasn't worn out, and there were all sections in the bracelet. When I bought this first watch in the spring 2004 in the Center Point Mall at the intersection of Steeles and Yonge in Toronto, I asked to remove one section because a standard bracelet was too large for me. It proves that perpetrators lived in Toronto and attacked me there in 2006. It proves that it was perfectly possible for police or RCMP to start an investigation and find the perps, but they did nothing. It proves that the Toronto police, RCMP, and Canadian government sanctioned and covered these crimes. That's why they are completely responsible for them. I was diagnosed with psychosis and delusional disorder by psychiatrists Drs. Gretzer and Dieff in June 2006. I told Drs. Dieff and Gretzer that I was a victim of psychotronic weapons, sent letters to them, sent statements of disagreement, filed a complaint with the Information and Privacy Commission of Ontario in order to cancel this diagnosis, provided doctors with literature about psychotronic weapons. I provided them with all expert opinions that I was a victim of mind and body control effects. Unfortunately, doctors refused to cancel their inappropriate diagnosis. If these diagnoses are right, the psychosis and delusional disorder are the consequences of the influence of electromagnetic energy and psychotronic weapons, since the crudest forms of the psychotronic weapon attacks could be used to distract individuals. But I am convinced that I have been sane so far, and psychiatric diagnoses are false. I also claim health damage of other kind as a consequence of electromagnetic energy and psychotronic weapons attacks. Trauma of left temple, debilitation of mental acuity, disruption of ability to concentrate and think on my own, loss of memory and skills. I have arrived at Canada in perfect health in February 2004. My family doesn't have any history of psychiatric diseases. I was almost 47 years old when I was labeled with psychosis and delusional disorder. I led normal and healthy life before the beginning of these experiments. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, and didn't abuse drugs. My former family doctor, Kenneth Chow, said to me after I had reported to him about my symptoms, "Bad government." About my lawsuits, I filed statements of claim against the Toronto Police Services Board, RCMP, Li Chen, and landlord Reng Xianli, Drs. Priam, psychiatrists Dr. Dieff, Gretzer, and psychologist Dr. Berry, with the Superior Court of Justice in Toronto. I filed a complaint against Dr. Berry with the College of Psychologists in Ontario. I filed a complaint against the Toronto Police Services with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Unfortunately, all my actions were dismissed. My lawsuits against Drs. Dieff and Gretzer were dismissed because I couldn't find a psychiatrist in Ontario who agreed to write an expert medical report for this lawsuit. All psychiatrists to whom I was referred by my former physician, Dr. Maget Ibrahim, refused to see me, and Dr. Ibrahim refused to refer me anymore because these referrals took too much of his time. Master Thomas Hawkins didn't let me examine Constable Corby from the 33rd Division of Police, Toronto Police Service, and get proofs of the Toronto Police negligence. I would like to remind that Constable Corby confessed to me that he experienced noises and sounds in his head at my place on the 6th of February 2008. Psychotronic weapons attacks and negligence of the police might have been proved in court if Constable Corby and his partner, Constable Khan, had been put on oath and testified microwave hearing in my room on the 6th of February 2008. I tried to examine Constable Corby for my actions against psychiatrists Drs. DF and Grazia in the Superior Court of Justice. At the first motion, it was said to me to examine Constable Corby orally. I called him and asked to set date and time convenient for him to come to a reporting service and be examined orally before a pending motion. He refused to be examined and said that I should not come to the 33rd Division of the Toronto Police Services with any court documents for him. I brought another motion to examine him by means of written questions, since there was no way to examine him orally. Mr. Robin Squire, a lawyer for the Toronto Police Services Board, said to Master Hawkins at the motion against Dr. Grazia on the 19th of May 2009, if plaintiff, he meant me, I was plaintiff, if plaintiff examines Constable Corby, she will get a proof of the police negligence. Furthermore, Mr. Robin Squire, a lawyer for the Toronto Police, asked Master Hawkins not to mention these words in a transcript of the motion. I repeated these words of Mr. Squire in the Court of Appeal on the 15th of December 2009, where I asked to send the case back to the Superior Court of Justice and let me examine Constable Corby. Mr. Robin Squire was at this appeal hearing and heard my words, but didn't object what I reported to the appeal court about his words at the motion on the 19th of May 2009. I ordered the transcript of this motion in the Superior Court of Justice and was unable to find this phrase of Robin Squire. If plaintiff examines Constable Corby, she will get a proof of the police negligence. It disappeared from the transcript. Master Hawkins did exactly what Mr. Robin Squire, a lawyer for the Toronto Police, requested him to do. Another court case. One former member of our organization, Alan Kelly, who found me on the internet and asked to add his name to our letter petition in 2020, suddenly, for no reason, began to send me death threats since May 2023. He sent me more than 30 email letters, around 40 email letters with these death threats. As it was clear from his emails, he hated CSIS agents and Jews. He called me a Jew and CSIS agent, even though I do not have a Jewish origin and have nothing to do with CSIS. Of course, I reported to the Toronto Police about this incident. I reported to police his full name, phone, mailing address, and email address. The police found him and started an investigation. The court hearing was scheduled for the 10th of September 2024 in the Criminal Court in Toronto at 10 Armory Street. I came to the court that morning at 10 a.m. A prosecutor, lady, recognized me and invited to talk. She said to me that one of the most important documents, confession of Alan Kelly, that it was he who sent me death threats, disappeared from my file. She said to me that she noticed this a day before. Then she explained to me that it would be impossible to win the case without this document. Actually, she said that it was useless even to start the court hearing without the confession. She told that it was somebody's mistake. Somebody just put this important document inside another file. Of course, I do not believe in any mistakes or coincidences. I am positive that this document was removed intentionally from my file just to let the perpetrator go without any criminal charges. The only thing that was possible to do was a peace bond for 2 years. Mr. Kelly cannot contact me or approach me for 2 years. I thought that such things may happen somewhere in Africa, in countries with high corruption. However, Canada is not better than the most corrupted countries in the world. If documents disappear from files in the office of the prosecutor. More about my struggle with police and RCMP. I have reported more than 10 times to the Toronto police, provided them with my symptoms and names of the suspects, Lee Chen and family of landlords at 73 Moscow Crescent. I reported to the police divisions 41, 52, 33, 43, 55. However, the police refused to start investigations every time. I talked to police officers Castle and Nicholas in the 33rd Division on the 16th of December 2007. I told them name of the suspect, Lee Chen, but they refused to investigate. Police officer Castle asked me twice, "What do you think? What government affects you? Maybe Russian?" I answered that I believed it was the Canadian government, at least it sanctioned all these attacks and possibly employed organized criminals, because police, RCMP, and other government structures had been aware of these experiments since January 2006, but did not start any investigation, despite the fact that the experimenters lived and visited the house at 73 Moscow Crescent, where I rented an apartment. Furthermore, the government of Canada has a history of abuse and that results in diseases and premature deaths of people. I mean MK-Ultra experiments in Montreal, Canada. Police officer Constable Corby from the 33rd Division came to my apartment on the 6th of February 2008 and witnessed microwave hearing. He heard sounds in his head at my place, but didn't investigate anything. I talked to the police officer Gottschalk in the 33rd Division on the 24th of April 2008. I and my landlord, we reported to the officer Gottschalk that I recorded more than 200 volts meter for radio frequency 10 MHz and other frequencies many times, but nothing has been investigated so far. Just a moment. On the 20th of June 2012, I reported that I was under psychotronic influence to Mr. Sheldon from Mobile Crisis Program and police officer Aiden from the Division 43 of the Toronto Police, who came to my place. Aiden said to me that police do not investigate crimes committed by electromagnetic weapons. She insisted that an assault by means of electromagnetic weapons wasn't an assault at all. She didn't want to listen, interrupted me, and said that she didn't want to hear my symptoms and extracts from my medical records. I read for her records of Dr. Staninger and Joyce Myers. She said to me that I didn't have any damage. She said to me, Aiden denied that it may be that I have a psychiatric disorder and am a victim of psychotronic weapons at the same time, and sent me to psychiatrists. I felt badly every day. I needed immediate assistance from the emergency service, and I called 911 on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of June 2013. Police Constables Clark and Gonzalez and Sergeant Danny Diane came to my place with 3 paramedics on the 3rd of June 2013. They said to me that they worked for the Canadian government and couldn't investigate crimes committed or sanctioned by the government. And it was at the end of our conversation. They did nothing for me. RCMP. I called the RCMP. This is a secret police in Canada. I called the RCMP in April-May 2006 and reported to an officer who introduced himself as Stephen Frith, my symptoms and name of a suspect, Li Chen. Stephen Frith said that there were no laws to defend me, and he didn't see anything criminal in this situation. I filed another online complaint with the RCMP at the end of 2008. The RCMP started an investigation of the psychotronic attacks upon me in January 2009. Corporal Clamp of the RCMP carried on this investigation and said to me over phone that an RCMP officer talked to the suspect Li Chen, and Li Chen confessed that he had studied psychotronic weapons and their influence on psyche of people. The RCMP stopped the investigation immediately after this conversation. Corporal Clamp of RCMP said to me that they needed additional evidences. It is clear that a crime has been committed against me, and this is their duty to find more evidences and facts, since RCMP and police officers are paid for it. Corporal Clamp said that there were no laws to defend me in Canada. It is not true. There are tons of laws in Canada which defend us. For example, our Constitution, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, criminal laws against negligence, fraud, kidnapping, assault, battery, torture, harassment, invasion of privacy, and other criminal laws. But Corporal Clamp said to me that we looked at Canadian laws differently. Corporal Clamp said to me that these crimes were not under jurisdiction of RCMP, and if I need a regular official investigation of the crime committed by means of electromagnetic weapons, I have to go to the Toronto Police Services. However, when I and other targeted individuals, my comrades, came to police, they immediately refused to investigate and immediately redirected us back to RCMP. This is a very short story about my communication with Canadian doctors, Canadian lawyers, police, and RCMP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Galina. Now, I would like to ask around, do we have anyone that would like to volunteer a closing comment?
Maybe Maxine. Maxine, what do you think?
Maxine?
Maxine, we would like to hear from you. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, please. Okay.
Okay, so my final word for this, you've done a good comprehensive story about what the doctors do and how they sort of get to people. I've heard that before from many people, but I haven't had too much of that experience. So I hope that continue to, to not go be disadvantaged to others, and somewhere they can stop it and have the doctors do what they're supposed to do, which is to take care of patients. To continue to come together to share our stories and to continue to seek out ways we can stop this torture by dialoguing with, authorities, people who can keep, bring about changes. And more than anything else, just stop the surveillance of people in their homes and wherever they go, because why do they need to watch you so much? I mean, what do they think you're going to pull off or take, or, I don't know what that is about, but they do it. So I just want all that to come to an end.
Very good. Very good. David, would you like to add anything?
Well, one point I wanted to bring out was that in the 90s, the psychiatrists weren't making much money because people were going to psychologists. So they got together with the pharmaceutical boys, and they were told by the pharmacy people that if they came up with mental disorders, the pharmaceutical would come up with the appropriate drugs to fix that order. And so they came up with 150 mental disorders, and they used to have a criteria of 3 different things that people were experiencing in order to get labeled, that you need help. And then it was down to 1. So if you tell psychiatrists that you are hearing voices, you're immediately labeled as a paranoid schizophrenic. That's how it works. I've been institutionalized against my will twice, and I remember one psychiatrist, because I went on the internet with him and I showed him that all these things were happening. And so I said also, I'm too old actually to have that type of mental disorder. And he said, yeah, that's right. It's 1 in 100 or something like that of your age that can get this. And he said, but the odds are that I believe the odds are much greater that you have become a victim of this technology. So that's how he based his opinion on, was the odds of me getting a mental disorder at my age compared to me being a victim of this technology, even though he said that after I showed him a bunch of things that the technology existed. So that's pretty much what we're up against. And I've had experience when I first started out here, working with a group, and what I found out, it was pretty much of a joke, because what was decided on one week wasn't even remembered the next time around. And also in a group in Nanaimo of several of the people who were being tortured. The problem is that so many people are worried about their own trip that it's very hard to get together and do anything as a group. That's what my experience. So I've tried to bring this out, in the best way that I know. And I don't know in the future if there is more information about this. It's a possibility that, we could stop this from happening. I've had many attempts on my life. I found out they got a 10-year contract on me, and when it ran out, they tried to take me out. But for the grace of God, I am still here. And, fighting the only way I know how is by trying to bring this out, that this is happening, that these people are behind it. You're up against so much, I don't care. I don't think that the cops, the government, or anyone else really gives a damn about what you're experiencing. That's been my experience in trying to go through proper channels. So, The only way that I could see this happening is through enough lawsuits that it's no longer viable for these people to continue the torture program if they have to pay out all this money to people who are under this program.
Thank you.
That's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you very much, David. Is there anyone else that would like to lend comments?
I think your story was absolutely remarkable, and David, also, mate. To call us delusional schizophrenic, we know that schizophrenia happens to people in their teens and their 20s, not beyond that period. It's outrageous that these evil perpetrators just don't give a damn about what they do to us and our lives. When you consider we've done absolutely nothing to these people whatsoever. And it's part of the new communication, unfortunately, that we still have to suffer as part of their soulless being. And if you can't relate to something bigger than the microphone that they sit in front of on a chair and call us names, it's not about us at all. It's about them. That's my final word, Frank. And thank you for the opportunity to talk on the program today. You do an incredible job, Frank. And thank you, Galina, Maxine, and David also.
Okay.
Sorry.
Very good. I would like to say thank you to you, Craig, Galina, Maxine, and David. I would like to thank my supporters, our listeners, our board members. And I would like to say good night from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Frank Allen.